Good afternoon. My name is Norman Fang, and today's podcast topic is growing award-winning Paphiopedilum leucochilum. We have done a similar species called Paphiopedilum leucochilum couple weeks ago, and guess what? Can you tell any one of those here uh, which is leucochilum or Balachilum? Okay, yeah, it's really hard to tell. In fact, these three rows here is all Balachilum. The top two rows here is leucochilum. And they actually all from very similar, they're from Thailand. This is the leaf of, this is one of the very exceptional size of leucochilum. And I'm going to versus the leaf of a Balachilum pattern. Without knowing the label, you can actually cannot tell the difference until they flower. But in general, leucochilum usually more narrow in leaf shape, and Balachilum usually more compact and shorter. But this is all the leucochilum. They're all from the same cross. This is leucochilum, this is leucochilum. They are from the same seed pod. And this one here, for some reason, is very, very compact and very tall leaf. Okay, how many of you, if you never grown leucochilum before, I want to stress again, do not buy any of those eyelash size. Any of the plant you want to buy is at least one single grow, mature grow like this, at least 4 to 5, 6 inches leaf span. And once they get to this leaf span size, usually about 3 to 4 years by the professional grower. If you're doing at home as a hobby, you want to add at least 1 or 2 more years. So let the professional grower do the growing, because every stage from defrosting in 2-inch pot to 3-inch pot, every stage, the professional grower, even like myself, we usually lose about 10 to 20%. Okay, so so this, if you have never have growing any of this single flower or the brachy type Balachilum or leucochilum before, always buy the biggest size you can buy. And another thing I want to stress about obtaining or purchasing Paphiopedilum leucochilum is buy it from a good, reputable, a good breeder, a good source, because as you can tell, this is all good DNA. And this is the number, it's called NF2129. We actually import this from a company called Bear Orchid. Mr. Hong, he is actually specialized in nothing but Paphiopedilum. And so we actually import, when I go to Taiwan, when I travel in Asia, we go to the best source. And Mr. Bear Orchid is actually had the best, I think, some of the best Paphiopedilum species in Taiwan or Asia. And another thing I'd like to talk about, if you can always go back to referral as the Paphiopedilum Balachilum as a similarity. They're all from Thailand. Some part of it's kind of distributed around this Thailand, some Burma area, but very different than the Maori type and or the colossum type. This type of orchid, leucochilum or Balachilum, they're not growing on the top of the decomposed leaf. In fact, they usually grow on the cliff or on the top of the rock. Okay, so this is why if you look at the mix, we started as a basic mix of the fine Norman's orchid mix. But I added extra, you can add extra chunky perlite or pumice, or in this case, I use a lot of this pumice that we imported from Turkey. And there's something about this pumice from Turkey is very light. You put it in the water, they actually, after they absorb the water, they're not going to sink at the bottom to the water. They actually flow. So they give a lot of air space. So we're trying to stimulate almost like what a magnetic habitat. So, well, I found the leucochilum versus the Paphiopedilum that we covered before. Leucochilum like to be on the drier side than Paphiopedilum. Paphiopedilum is one species that you can, in a growing season, they just love the water. You cannot overwater them. They just really can benefit from the water. Leucochilum actually, when we grow this in the greenhouse, just when they actually mature on the suitable, on the shoot, I usually hang them out on the top higher side of the greenhouse where they don't get water as much. They tend to like to be on the drier side. If you take out the root system, they actually have a finer root system than the Paphiopedilum. And this is almost the end of growing season. Most of this, the one I show here, they started as a vegetative grow. So they will have at least 5 to 6 leaves. By the end of that development, usually you will have the flower spike coming out in the center. And for example, Jeff, we have a focus on this one here. This is when the flower bud is going to develop. Okay, this right here. And this is the time when I usually just hang them higher, or you can actually put another pot under the bench, under the pot. And this is the time I usually do not water as much. The reason being I don't want the water to stay here too long, because this is the tender stage that if water stays here too long, if you add the Florida, you have or Texas, right, this time of the year, warm day and very warm night, and they tend to have water collect here and they might water it. Okay, so by putting the pot underneath here, when I do the hand water, you can tell yourself not to water. So you always maybe this week water, next week you skip it. You want to let the flower spike continue. Okay, and also another thing is do not stage the flowers but too early. If you can tell, before they get too open, they actually can support themselves. And this is not even open yet. Okay, this is actually the flowers. The flower can take up to 4 to 6 weeks to really show the size of the flower to this. Okay, you can tell this. And this is actually the stage to spike it. This is not even ready yet. Do not spike too early, because sometimes they will keep growing them, and then the flower shape will be too upside down. So I would take this one for judging. This is actually really, really big, and the flower is actually too heavy for it. And I'd like to use a frost wire. Bend over. And I use it, I like to use this, we sell this wire here too. The wire is very flexible. I can cut it shorter, or you can actually shape the flower shape, tilt it. Is it, how does it look? Jeff, it's good? Okay, so that way, if you do it from the vertical side, they're not touching the sepal is not touch the pot. Okay. And this one actually too big to be its own good. If you take it for judging, we probably take a point because this here. Okay. Another thing that we this plant is actually, and I was come back from Asia for 2 weeks, so you were at the tip or higher of the stage, the label. It got too hot, so that's why you get a lot of reverse. Okay, have I been here the last 2 weeks? I will put it, to lower on the bench level with a reduced light. Okay, that way if it's stronger the light, they're gonna open really fast, and that's why sometimes they open too fast and they actually kind of reverse, going backward, and that is the same situation with this one here. So there's a little bit trick about development. So when do you know when to reduce the light? Okay, so if this is the one I'll put it on the higher bench level. Okay, if you go under light, when they're about half open like this, okay, this is when they slowly starting the color and the shape. Then you start putting them to the low light. If you go under light, okay, when the flower bud is developing, put it with if you have Jeff light. Jeff have a light is like for Cattleya or Vandasias, getting a lot of light, getting the bud really develop and have all the energy for the size. And after that, you can actually put it lower with a Phalaenopsis light label. So the intensity of the LED light is less. So that what they will take the time to slowly to develop. You will get a rounder shape and better color. Okay, so in orchid judging, and especially for American Orchid Society judging, the shape is 35%, 35%, the color and then the size. So this one probably have the very good size. They depend on the judging team. Sometimes they might screen it because this reverse on the dorsal sepal, but this is still a very good keeper. It might not be as bad next year, but at this genetically we have the size. So leucochilum is always on the kind of yellow and cream size versus the Paphiopedilum, and this is actually very, very good, a great companion species to grow with your novelty Phalaenopsis like Bonina and Violesia. The only difference is do not and never grow them in the moss. Okay, where they come from, they grow on the top of the rock, so they are actually enjoy the alkaline potting media. So the moss is very acid. So always grow the Paphiopedilum type or any other brachy type in the bark mix, and with additional either pumice or perlite. And what about the winter time? Winter time, if you have going under light, you're in a good condition. In fact, you're going to push earlier for flower than most of us without the under light. If you are going under light and you do not have a heat mat, that kind of condition when we have lower than 65 or 60 degrees, they are really slowing down. So in the wintertime, I usually only water them once a month, because physiology, they are going to kind of resting period, because in the natural light, when we have shorter day, longer light, longer night, and lower night temperature, it tells the plant to go into this kind of dormant, slowing down stage. So that's when you saw less water. So pretty much at the beginning of March to October is their active growing season, and they can have. I've been having the leucochilum flowering as early as October. I'm sorry, as early as, I have jet lag. I'm sorry. It is still like 4 a.m. over there. It can flower as early as May, and the way it looks like this year, today is September 2nd. Yes, we have a very cloudy day and raining day. So a lot of the plant are actually really confused. So I see some of the plant that's still spiking. So I assume I'm going to have some flower for October show at the Huntington. So a lot of time, for example, like this one here is a good first bloom, and some genetic, they actually have 2 more growth coming up. Every new growth going to have flowers. So I'm going to have this one flower here, either this bigger span, I might have another one before Christmas, and this one here will be maybe for earlier spring in 2024. So never on this brachy type, whether it's Paphiopedilum or leucochilum, do not try to repot them or divide them in a hurry. In fact, this kind of mix, because have a lot of pumice, have a lot of rock, so they drain easily. I haven't repotted this for 3 to 4 years, and then that's okay. But as long as the plant are growing happily, and we also follow everything we do here. Once a month, we use a teaspoon per gallon of 5 cents. So 5 cents will actually keep the slowing down, also the decompose of the potting media in this case. And they do not like to repot them during the active growing season. I will usually flower only the best ultimate time to repot them is about March, April. Okay. Another time you can repot them is actually right after the flower, only with a condition if they have any new growth coming up. So this one here, for example, I will not repot them because this plant here, this shoot here, still at the active vegetate stage. So you do not want to disrupt the growing stage of the vegetation, because this, I think when this foliage fully develop, I was expecting a spike coming up from here. And another time, if you're not sure, and this is true with the Maria type too, you can actually feel the bottom, the base, and Jeff. Okay, so this one here, I can almost guarantee you they're gonna have a spike. Not only that, you see here, this is a sheet here. And another one time you can tell is feel the bottom of the shoot. If feels something, almost like that's pregnant. I feel there's a lower bud developing. Jeff?
Do an ultrasound?
I don't need ultrasound in this case, just use your finger. Did you feel something?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it feels something in there, okay? So this is also, do not repot them. You do not want to disrupt, okay? So the ultimate condition, especially the fall is coming. From now to next year, don't repot them unless you're going under light. You have 12 hours of daylight, and you also have the heating mat that keep at 65 degrees. So you artificially you kind of fool them also they still get in they're still in the spring to summer stage. But for myself in the greenhouse, most of them or at home, the fall is coming. You notice that the day is getting shorter and shorter, and especially the East Coast or Northwest. Your daylight is getting shorter, the night temperature is cooler, so you do not want to repot them right now. Okay, so the most of the Paphiopedilum, like Maria type, you pretty much can repot any time of the year, with the exception of the brachy type, the leucochilum, especially Paphiopedilum. They do not like to disrupt, especially in the cold weather and short day, long night, and temperature drop below 55. If you repot it, they're not going to send out any new root until next year. Okay, so that's the part. It's a trick to it. Water them regularly. Common sense. The warmer the temperature, and because we put in more pumice in there, okay, they're going to dry out faster. Especially if you live in West Coast Florida, western Mississippi, like in California, our summer is drier, so you're going to dry out faster. So you want to water them maybe up to twice a week.
Linda was asking if you're growing these in bark at all, or is it just straight pumice?
Well, this one here have bark in there, but because they've been so long, some of the bark kind of precipitated down below. This mix that we have is almost 80% turkey pumice. You can almost go as like hydroponic. I seen people do it 100% perlite with a chunky perlite, but that's kind of tricky because you want to make sure the orchid nutrient you have is very balanced, like Norman's orchid food. They have a lot of things in there. We can do it here because our water here is kind of alkalinized. So by the time they come from Colorado, they have a lot of mineral. They have a lot of heavy metal. Not heavy metal, have a lot of mineral, calcium in there. That's why a lot of time you say, Norman, how can your fertilizer do not have calcium? Actually, most of the fertilizer and most of orchid, you actually do not need to supplement calcium. Calcium, adding too much, you're gonna get some burn or tip burn here. So always trust your instinct. They don't need a lot of micronutrient because most of the tap water, our city water, do have some calcium in there, especially if you are in California or New Mexico. Water have a lot of the calcium, some calcium in there, or if you have well water, okay. But the only time you have to supplement your calcium or any extra micronutrient is when you are using reverse osmosis water. That's when they take out everything. But it's still, if you're not sure, it's better not to add any supplement. My philosophy always less is more. Paphiopedilum, they have very sensitive root system. They are not as forgiving as Phalaenopsis or Cattleya to overdose or micronutrient or fertilizer. So when you come to Paphiopedilum, whether it's leucochilum, Paphiopedilum, or the Moriatai, or the multiflora, the Rocharderianum, Philippensis, always less is more, because anytime you damage the root system, it takes a lot of effort, twice as much effort versus Cattleya or Phalaenopsis. So if you have doing well with Paphiopedilum or Moriatai, very similar, but just remember leucochilum, right before they flower, when the shoot is mature, before they flower, give them more light. And then when I put it on a higher light, put a reverse pot underneath, so you're kind of living on the drier side. That way, you preventing possible of rotting in the center. And a lot of times, too much water, the flower stem might be develop really fast and become weak. So I found that on the leucochilum, half of the light, half of the watering as the regular vegetative stage. Now, I'm talking about growing the for a wall for optimum condition. I've been growing this for the leucochilum for about last 10 years. So I finally figured out the trick to get the size, the best color is you want to start taking care of them when the flower spike is emerging. Okay, so less light, start to reduce the light, especially when they're puffy stage and on the drier side. And make sure you use the 5 cent as a preventative once a month. Fertilizer, normal socket food, twice a month, every other week. Do not mix it. Okay, it makes a difference between this size bud and this. Okay, you want to really give them everything. Those are the critical 2 months. Okay, this is almost the end of the rope. Okay, this is one you can really give the extra care to them to make sure that make a difference between the blue ribbon winner and white ribbon winner. You want to give them the maximum potential for expression of the gene. Okay, so this is another like this. Okay, this is when I start. I would at the bench area. I would start collecting all the one in spike, and we will put it in the grouping area. Okay, I want to make sure I don't. Another trick I will use before. It won't hurt to if you have extra 5 cent solution. You can even do it as a drench. Okay, if you want to do that, I would just if you have a lot, you can go as low as 1 ounce per gallon as a drench. With foliar application, you use 3 ounces per gallon for the mega dry. Okay, but drenching, I think I mentioned that before. Drenching in this stage, you could really make a difference. Remember, we found the result when we had the Prince Edward York.
Were you talking about drenching Phison or drenching
Mega dry.
Mega thread, not
Yeah,
Phison.
no, or Phison we drench anyway. But the reason we got that, the reason the FCC Prince Edward York, because it set a standard. It had total of 5 flower and 1 more bud. The total of 6, and most of the previous FCC is usually about 4. 4 flower, 1 bud is a max. Okay, so this is why you can push to the next stage, and that's all the good grower, whether 20 years ago, 100 years ago, they always try to provide a growing environment to optimize. Okay, when the plant are optimized, they got all the benefit from the optimum light, water, fertilizer, and everything else. They really can express the best potential of the flowering. Okay, and other than that, common sense. Okay, always buy the biggest plant you can buy. Buy it from a good source. Read the description. Make sure they are good parentage. Almost like, yeah, when you go buy your dog, your puppy, you want to buy it from a good breeder, from good pedigree. So if you just a regular run-of-the-mill leucochilum, you do not know what kind of leucochilum they breed with. They could be just garbage in, garbage out. You know, you don't want, you know, if you want to spend the time, and this is what I'm trying to explain to you. My company got over almost 450 award now, and it's all about the genetic. Okay, if you want to spend the same amount of time, the money to take care of your orchid, you might as well start one of the best genetic possible. The same thing you will want to buy your puppy from the best breeder you can find, okay? And you don't have eliminate any of the problem. Other than that, enjoy them. Leucochilum, very long lasting, very long lasting. The flower lasted can be about almost 3 months from the beginning toward the end. And once they get going with a multiple growth on them, they can have sometimes twice a year, especially if you go under light. Like this one here, I know this particular plant this is the 3rd flower. This is from last year, and then we keep it because color looks good. You cannot judge the quality of the size award potential on the first bloom on the brachy type. So this had the flower this past April. I'm getting the 2nd spike. this year for the fall. So once you get going, that's good. That's what a good genetic is all about. They're very vigorous, so you can get better for your money. Other than that, enjoy and look at them. Is out. If you have a lot of them, might as well get look at them. They're a very great companion with your with all your novelty Phalaenopsis, like Tetrapolis, Bernina, Emboliensis. They all from the area of the South Pacific warm. Okay, thank you very much for today's podcast.